Blessings to you. My name is Nigel Daring. I am the author, the originator of the philosophy of Darinism or Darinism, if you will. I've done 7 previous videos to this one. I hope you can check them out. My philosophy is based on my analysis of existence, and uh, you can see how I break down my philosophy in my book called Existence, God, Man, Society, and Nature, which you're seeing in the background along with my picture. You can go on Amazon.com. You can type in the name of the book, Existence, God, Man, Society, and Nature. Or you can type in my name, Nigel Daring, and you'll see 16 books come up. And you can pick that particular book if you want to get into my ideas some more. Um, so this particular um, video is about chasing greatness. Of course, my philosophy is about looking at Genesis chapters 1, 2, and 3 and finding there in there the relevance to our existence, finding in there that that is truth. It explains our reality, and there it is quite relevant to our existence, and we need to understand it in order to understand ourselves. Now, just by way of review, last time I tackled 4 questions that people might uh, might tend to come up sometimes when they're discussing Genesis, like why didn't God foresee the first couple's disrespect? Why didn't God, the all-seeing God, why didn't He see it all happening before He created it, create everything? Why did He go through this bother to create something that was only going to end up being a mess and disrespectful of Him and the order of existence? And I argued that God knew before He created the physical realm, which is an illusion. He knew before he cast up this illusion what they were going to do, and I argued, in fact, that it was the very reason why he created this illusion, because before Adam and Eve, they existed in a spiritual state in the realm of God in His kingdom. But God saw something inside of them, deep within their consciousness. There was something buried, that potential for evil, that potential to disrespect Him and not want to be in His kingdom. So what He did was He created this condition which served as an opportunity for them, which is a physical realm. And He created the devil to entice them to be the devils that they wanted to be deep within themselves. Now, I last video, I neglected another aspect to this. Um, so we're in God's kingdom because it's not just Adam and Eve that are given these conditions, but we ourselves also. Adam and Eve was given the condition of the physical realm and the devil as temptations, right? We are given, after that we're given these temptations, these conditions: the physical realm, the devil, and other temptations, socio political realm that we're caught up in, the economic situations that we're caught up in, situations of strife, of war, or whatever circumstances we're born into. They're conditions, and they help foster and to allow us to make decisions, allowing that evil that's buried inside of us to come out. Now, we now that being said, there's another dimension to this, right? We can look at it as, well, you know what? God set us up to bring out the evil inside of us, or we can look at it as an opportunity to get rid of the evil inside of us, to purify ourselves more so we become more attuned to God's kingdom, right? We become more attuned to God. So we don't need to necessarily have this negative concept that because we existed prior to physical cloaking in this kingdom, and God saw something inside of us which was untoward, and He gave us this opportunity to bring out this evil. That's all it is. We're here to let this evil out and just be these evil beings that are ultimately going to be doomed and destined for hell and darkness. The other aspect is that we have to look at this as an opportunity for redemption, to get rid of what's this potential that's inside of us, this evil that's manifested inside of us, that's manifested in time and space, and to look in ourselves and use this as an opportunity to go back to God even better than we were originally, to go back in His kingdom and assume our proper place in His kingdom, a part of the body of God. Naturally, our right and proper place is the part of the body of God in the kingdom of heaven, in paradise, in Zion, where He lives and He rules and He reigns for all eternity. That's our proper place. That's where we belong. That's where we originated. Okay, we were naturally made good. We were naturally made loving and kind and respectful, but we had a potential for something else, and God gave us the conditions to manifest this potential, but we can allow the evil inside of us to capture us, or and let that be the defining feature of our time on earth, and then living in for all eternity outside God's kingdom in hell. Or we can look at this as an opportunity to get rid of this evil, this latent evil that was buried deep inside of us, and to emerge as better creatures, better and cleaner, more pure, faithful creatures to God, who are willing to assume our proper place in His paradise for all eternity, feeding off the tree of life, feeding off the body of His being, obeying Him, and doing and abiding by His word. Now, we also went on to say, well, why is the devil inspired to challenge God? Well, the devil really, we had said, well, the quick answer was he wanted to be God himself and have the power of God and feel like he was God commanding and instructing. But the thing is, the devil himself is not really a conscious being. He doesn't have that consciousness to be desiring power. The devil is a behavioral being. It is God. He's doing God's will. He's doing what God wants him to do. The, the relationship in existence proper is between man and God, or between people and God. It's not between man, the devil, and God. God just put the devil there as this agent to test our wills. What are we committed to, basically? That's what God is asking. Are you committed to Him? Or are you committed to being your own God, establishing your own sense of identity? So so that's why the devil's purpose is in existence. It is to entice us, to tempt us. But when it comes down to it, the devil is not to blame. It's what's inside of us. It's our willpower. It's our state of consciousness. What is it that we want for ourselves? Now, why does the devil approach Eve? Eve was created to sort of materialize Adam in a physical realm so that he gets to be like the other animals, which is to reproduce and recreate and have family. And and she's also there as his intellectual companion to offer ideas and offer position, challenge his position, or complement his position intellectually, stimulate him intellectually, right? So Eve has a place. What happens is that the devil understands her place, or the devil is acting through by God's will to abuse her place, because what her place is to sort of have Adam lust after her, so that he gets some place in the material realm, and he's not functioning solely as just a child of God in the spiritual state, but now he gets material interest and physical interest. What she does is use her place to inveigle his lust, because it's the lust of flesh that's going to bring Adam into the state the lust of flesh into this, that's going to bring him into the state of materialism, into the material realm, and make him proper. The material realm is reality, right? So that's, and that brings him into this evil. So it's a lust of flesh that's important, and Eve is there that provides that, but she is abusing her role, because her role as is not um to be an object of lust proper. The lust is supposed to be part of a spiritual relationship. They were made by God for each other, and that's a spiritual bond that they're supposed to have. God is a spiritual creature. They're supposed to have a wholesome relationship, but with Eve moving away from that under the advice of the devil, she brings Adam into that lust also, and they become, in terms of lusting after flesh, they by effect lust after the material realm and make it their reality. Okay. No, so that, and by making themselves material beings and conceiving themselves as objects of flesh and matter, what it is, they end up losing their spirituality and end up being an offense to God. Now, why are Adam and Eve enticed by the devil's idea? Um, it's what I said before. Their conscious. This was this was an ego. This was something buried in their ego, in their consciousness, to have this alternate ego that they wanted, which was to be divorced from God, to be away from God. So what the devil did, the devil tempted them, right? And they succumbed because they already had that in them. Matter of fact, they only hear the devil's voice with this idea because they were already prone to it. They were already inclined to want to obey the devil. And so that's when you hear the devil, when your mind is already inclined to him and you want to do what he wants to do. But if your mind is attuned to God, you tune him out. And whatever he's saying, you say, get the hell away from me. I'm not interested, right? But Adam and Eve were interested from because their mind, their state of consciousness, were primed for this creature to receive the teach what this creature is saying to them, because they wanted the idea appealed to them of having their ego, their own individual ego, divorced from God. So this idea of being some other great being that's away from God. They were already created in greatness. They are God themselves, materialized on the earth, but they didn't want that. They weren't accepting that. Because in accepting that the fact of that they're God themselves, what happens also is that they're becoming they're rendered in God's periphery. God is the center, and they're in the periphery, and they have to obey God and what God is saying. So what they did basically is follow the devil's advice, where they become their own center, and they're not obeying God. They're using the flesh as their center, their brain, to think for themselves and abide by their own ideas and go off their own um, intuition or their own processing of existence and how they want to think of truth themselves. They don't want to accept truth from the truth. They want to create their own truth and live in this illusion, this illusion of physical existence, and they themselves become this illusory idea. The idea of self is illusory, because the sense of self that the devil is telling them to chase after is actually not real. It's an illusion, right? They can't be this other thing, but the very idea that they're going to chase after it is appealing to them, and they think they can be it, and they're going to go after it to go chase this great ego, and so they're going on this ego trip. So this idea was already in them to appeal to them. It was a part of them, deep in their consciousness, to disobey God. So that's why the devil appealed to them. His idea appealed to them. It was embedded in them to want to disobey God, and they got the opportunity, which is this condition of physical existence. All right. Now, the effect of this ego chase. First of all, we pointed out before that insecurity, right? Because we see it when they were naked and unashamed before they sin. But once but they became insecure by the choice to sin. They when once they realized that once they sinned, they realized they were naked, right? They were ashamed of who they are, right? So that the shame goes with it. It's this insecurity of feeling inadequate in yourself when that shouldn't be the case, because they were adequate in themselves. They were perfect. Everything God created was perfect. If you look at Genesis chapters 1, when God created everything, and at the point that he creates something, and that's the day, he said it is good. There's nothing wrong with it. He created man in his own image. There's nothing wrong with God, so there's nothing wrong with man. It's perfect. But the man because of man's consciousness, and he moves his consciousness to want to be away from God and chase his ego, then he gets afflicted by insecurity. He gets also afflicted by fear. When after the sin, God called out to Adam, which God's voice is a voice of truth. It's the voice of his conscience. And God called out to him, and he said, I heard your voice. I was naked and afraid, so I hid myself. The insecurity and the fear. Fear. That great ego, once you're chasing that great ego, you're going to fear. Okay? Because you're using flesh. You're considering flesh and the material realm by extension as a reality. So then fear is going to come with it, because whatever you're chasing, your body is important. Your life is important, because it's a life of flesh that you're using to get to this great sense of self that you have in your mind. And there's always a potential that you could die. So you're going to fear for your life. Now, so we had mentioned I had mentioned those aspects before, but here's what also happens. When you're on this ego chase, when man is on this ego chase, you know what he does? He starts destroying this natural order, the nature around him. Right? When God created everything originally, he created everything perfect. There's nothing wrong with the thing. What happens is, because man developed this insecurity in himself, and this sense of incompleteness, this sense of incompleteness becomes an approach by which he approaches existence. Because for man approaches reality the way he approaches himself. So he's going to approach nature as somehow incomplete and inappropriate, because he's thinking of himself as incomplete and inappropriate. So the state of insecurity that he's in is casting it onto nature. So he's going to be destroying the earth around him, harming it, and recreating it to suit this ego that he's after. Whatever unnatural ideas of self he's after, he's going to look, because ideas allow for creativity. It's not just that you have ideas, you want to manifest them. So these unnatural ideas are going to affect nature, because he's going to recreate nature in some unnatural state. He's not going to accept nature as is. Here's the other thing. In being disconnected from the tree of life, the tree of man ends up being disconnected from nature, because the tree of life is what is in nature. It sustains nature. It is a part of nature. Nature came out of it, right? So by being disconnected from it, which is symbolized by God kicking Adam out of the garden of Eden, which is what happens is it's a spiritual thing. He kicked Adam and Eve out of heaven, right? Because the whole order of existence, nature, is heaven. The spiritual realm that God lives in is heaven. So what happens is, spiritually they're kicked out of heaven, which means that they're spiritually not connected to nature, because they're not connected to the life flowing through nature. All right? So they don't feel connected to it. They don't feel like, when man is cutting down trees and digging up the earth, he doesn't feel like he's hurting himself, because he's disconnected from it. So he's disconnected from it emotionally, he's disconnected from it intellectually. Okay? So he feels free to go there and harass nature and harm it, to do whatever he wants to do with it, to suit whatever concept he has in his mind, chasing this great sense of self. All right? Here's the other thing. people oppress each other. Once they're on this ego chase for greatness, this chase of this great idea of self, what it is, they end up oppressing other people, end up oppressing their fellow human beings. Okay, now the first one, the first thing relationship that comes into play is the relationship of man and woman, male and female. Remember, God said to Eve, um, he's going to rule over you. Adam is going to rule over you. Right? This is the effect of sin. That there you get this imbalance, this idea that there's going to be somebody superior and somebody inferior, that human beings aren't equal anymore. That's the effect of chasing ego. That people consider themselves as lesser and better than other people, and those that are lesser, they abuse. If you think you're better than somebody, you're going to abuse them, right? Because you're on your ego trip, and you think that you're better than this person, because you're outside of the natural order, chasing some false sense of self, and so you're in the natural order where you would see somebody else as your equal. You're not seeing the other people as equal anymore. You're seeing yourself perhaps as better than, and you could abuse people and harm people. So you can harm the environment, you can harm people. And in the relationship of men and women in society, women are going to be at the lower um, lower in status with respect to men, because that's the effect of the sin. That's the effect of original sin. People oppress each other. Women get um, lower in terms of their relate with respect to men. The natural order gets destroyed, and basically we get a loss of humanity, right? Um, you know, and then the other thing to notice, um, the socioeconomic and political realm now becomes hierarchical, because when you're chasing this great sense of self, right, this great ego, this is what men are chasing, this great ego. So they start end up feeling that they're better, chasing, you're getting to a better state of being. And once you start having that in mind, once you have this notion of better, you have a notion of lower, and that other human beings are going to be lower. So what you end up with is this hierarchical structure in society, when man at this very basic level is afflicted by this ego, right? Chasing an ego that he wasn't, and a self he wasn't meant to have, a sense of greatness he wasn't meant to have. He gets caught up in this hierarchical structure of society. This is the roots of civilized society. When man lives in nature, and amongst nature, he lives in an egalitarian world. Once he develops this ego, it's ego that causes man to move out of the state of nature and start chasing and start having rank order societies, and start recreating nature and reframing it and damaging it to suit ego, and develop a world away from the natural order. Man was made to be a part of the natural order. Once he developed this ego, he starts framing himself outside the natural order, and he starts wanting to create a world of his own. He's not accepting God's world anymore. He wants his own world. So he ends up with a political realm, a socio-political realm that's divorced from nature, and that's hierarchical in structure, with man ruling over man, man abusing nature, man abusing each other, man abusing woman, and that's the effect of the ego. Here's the other effect of the ego. There's this twisted psychology that develops, right? Where good becomes evil and evil becomes good. Good is, the original order was, everything is good, right? God made everything perfect. God made man perfect, right? Man adopted the devil's idea that there is imperfection. He is imperfect, and he's going to chase after some perfection of self, which is other than his nature. That then, what man is seeing is that the ambition to be other is good, and what he's doing to recreate himself and recreate nature, right, that becomes good. what he's in effect doing is he's harming himself. He's hurting himself trying to be something else, and he's harming nature trying to recreate it to suit his interpretation of existence and his misperception, his mischaracterization. So he gets into this twisted psychology that good is evil and evil is good. Right? So for instance, if when nature is out there, beautiful the way God made it, man will go out in nature, cut down the trees, level the land, damage it, bring in concrete and build all these structures, kill off the animals, destroy their habitat and ecosystems and whatever. And then look at what they've done and call that development. They're developing themselves. The area is growing. Well, when in reality, what they've done is destroyed. It's destruction that they've brought. They've destroyed nature. They've destroyed ecosystems. They're destroying the earth. Nature was made perfect and balanced. So when man goes in and he destroys things and harms, he gets this idea that he's doing good. Yeah, and in this inhumane state that he's in, where he's chasing ego, where he wants to be like God, he'll go out and devour other men, other cultures of creatures, try to subjugate them and conquer them, and he sees that as good. He's doing the right thing, and we still have that mentality today. We look at evil men as great. We look at Christopher Columbus. We call Alexander the Great. Um, you know, Genghis Khan. These people. We look at them and we're looking at their empires and how they've conquered and glorified themselves. And we write these in history books and we teach them to children, right? So we're seeing this as great when really these are great devils. They're evil. They're conquering and destroying and damaging people's lives and their existence and murdering and slaughtering to establish this kingdom, this great sense of self, this empire, because it's feeding this ego that they're after, chasing this glory. It's what's within their psychology, chasing glory. In the meantime, and they're seeing that as good, but what's really happening is that they've become inhumane. The order that God created, where man doesn't have this ego, and man is naturally, his ego is that of is where he's humble, and he's accepting himself in the periphery of God, where God is the center, he's the periphery, accepting God's instruction. He's humble and he's humane. Another human being was brought to Adam in a state of equality. There was no inequality, right? God put man in nature to care and tend for the garden. It's not to destroy it. It's not to damage it. It's to care and tend for it. He brought the animals as companions. It's not to slaughter them. It's not to put them on man's table. It was right. They were supposed to be companions. Once man starts chasing this ego, the whole thing gets twisted. And not only is it twisted, and man becomes inhumane, but he's seen his inhumanity as good. It's the ego that's valuable to him. It's the greatness, this chase of great sense of self. And we use this word greatness a lot, when we're chasing ego. When this great star, this great this or that, chasing ego. When the thing that's going on, most times it's inhumane. Man chasing dominion and that he shouldn't have. He wants to imitate God to have dominion, so he's going to go out and slaughter other people and to establish empires and kingdoms and stuff like that. And we're reading this in history saying, oh, look at this great one here or this great one there, when what's going on is something profoundly inhumane. We're looking at, oh, look at this great city, that was developed, or this great, area that was developed, when really what happened was that nature was destroyed and suffered for it, because however they destroyed nature, it never really comes back the way it was before. So this is the kind of twisted psychology man gets in chasing this ego. Here's the other effect of this ego. And it's another personal effect, but it's also societal. It comes into society, because if the man at a unit level, in civilized society, represents the whole society. How society moves in mass, or it conceives of itself in mass. What happens is this search for this completion of self, this ego, this alternate ego that man is searching after, this self that he can't really attain, but he keeps searching for it. He's never going to get to it, right? So he ends up in this restless and endless search for completion. That's the origin of greed. It's Adam's sin which ends up being greed, the root of capitalism. Greed, wanting more and chasing more, this concept of more. Needing more, more. You can't be satisfied. You want $1,000,000, you get $1,000,000. But then there's no satisfaction in that. The ego is not complete. So you want more, you need 1,000,000 more. And you get that, that's not enough. You get 1,000,000,000, you need 1,000,000,000 more. And you keep going and going, this out of control ego, chasing greatness, and it's the root of greed. There's no stopping to it. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. So this the effect of this ego trip is destructive in every facet of it. But what it is, we never really recognize it, because we end up in this twisted psychology of seeing it as good. Greed is good. Being greedy, going after more and more and more, things that you actually don't even need. And at the root of it, that's the root of addiction, addictive behavior, wanting more and more and more. It's so, because what's in our psychology becomes reflected in our bodies. The idea is not to go after more and more, but seek to be contented with what it is that you have, right? As long as you have your basic needs met, your needs for life are met, that you don't need to be chasing this more and more and more and more. It's an agonizing state of being. It's unnatural and it's offensive. It's offensive to God and creation. Your natural state of being is to be content in yourself. If it can be understood, if you need something and it's essential to your existence. But if you're going after things that you don't need just for the sake of satisfying ego, it is a destructive mentality that you have. It is a destructive psychology, part of that twisted psychology, part of that emotional disturbance that you have inside of you. It's not a good thing. All right? All right. Well, we'll leave it there for today. And until next time, thanks for checking me out.